Good evening, it's Freddie Vasquez with Basement Politics Unfiltered, special edition with special guest, Andrea Vasquez. Tonight I want to talk about teenage pregnancy, abortions, and Planned Parenthood, and how will the Roe versus Wade decision impact her work with teenage girls. Let's talk about it. Good evening, it's Freddie Vasquez with Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, a special episode, teenage pregnancy. I want to talk about the effects or potential effects of teenage pregnancy. Of the Roe versus Wade decision on teenage pregnancy and abortions. And I brought a special guest on, my wife, Andrea Vasquez, who has worked with many teenage girls throughout her almost 20-year career. So join me. Like that? Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics, a special. Tonight, I want to talk about the Roe versus Wade decision, but I want to talk about it as it relates to teenage and adolescent pregnancy and abortions. In my research and, from statistics, adolescents make up 13% of the abortions that occur here in the United States. So I want to talk about that. I want to bring my wife on, who's a licensed master social worker, therapist, and I'll let her tell more about herself so, she can give her insight as she's worked with teenage girls and has, done things like taking girls to Planned Parenthood and talk to them about sex and stuff like that. So, help me welcome my wife, Andrea, and just tell them a little bit about yourself and some of the things you've done with teenage girls. Well, and working with teenage girls.
Yep. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Andrea Vasquez. Like Freddie said, I am a licensed master social worker. I spent 13 years in the Bronx as a school social worker. In a middle school in the South Bronx, District 9. So dealt a lot with this issue. I'm currently an administrator, a vice principal here in Yonkers, and still deal with similar issues, but definitely had a lot of touchings with this in the Bronx. Like I said, I was in a middle school, 6th through 8th grade, and I had a girl pregnant every year that I was at my school.
Wow.
I was at my school for 13 years as the school social worker. And work directly with Planned Parenthood because they came into our school to deliver workshops to our students.
Well, I want to bring you on because, also in my research, it stated that, and you being a Black woman, that 30%, Black women, I should say, account for 30% of abortions here in the United States. Now, one thing I've been saying, and people have been giving me, some people agree, but also some people have been giving me flack. I've been talking about, encouraging, girls maybe to wait, wait till they marriage, but at least till they find the right guy. That's something that you had in mind as a young teenage girl when we met, many years, 25 years ago. Tell me, I want to know, how can we do that, right? And what do you do when you're working with teenage girls and you're talking about, sex and pregnancy and abortions and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important for girls to know their worth. And I think that it is difficult for young ladies in this day and age to be comfortable with saying that they want to wait, so it is important. I did grow up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so I had a lot of different influences around me. I was lucky to have both of my parents in the house, and they raised us in a very Christian household where we were told to wait and, and encouraged to wait. And, that was something that was really important for me. So when I did meet Freddie, he was from Yonkers, very different than from Oklahoma and where I was from and what he was used to. But I made it very clear from the beginning that I wasn't interested in having sex anytime soon, and that I wanted to wait until I was married. And that was something that was very important to me. I think that we need to make sure that our young ladies are setting standards for themselves. That was something that I found a lot of girls in the Bronx, just didn't have any standards. Well, what are your deal breakers, and they didn't really have very many. So, it's important to make sure that we're talking to our young ladies about that.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, because I'm not against, the Roe versus Wade. I'm sorry, abortions, and I'm not saying it should be banned completely. What I said is, that I don't agree with it, but I believe it's a woman's right, and it's, not my business, right? But I also was saying that, why don't we encourage, more thing, or find solutions maybe that will reduce the need for abortions, right? Instead of, just only saying, hey, abortion. So I wanted to see, ask you, what is it that you talk to the girls about, right, when you're in girls groups, because you do, your girls groups and stuff like that, and that comes up a lot, right? Because the girls, they always want to
Yeah.
talk about boys and stuff, right? Boys.
Absolutely. And I think girls have a lot of questions about sex and relationships. And a lot of times at home, they don't have anyone to talk to about that. So it's really important that they feel comfortable and safe going to somebody, an adult, who can tell them the right information. But it was important for them to hear that I was able to have a relationship where my husband waited for me, and
Right.
he was willing to wait, and for them to know that it's okay to set that standard
Right.
for yourself and stick to it.
So it's like, that's the thing too. Like, that's why I say it's important too, that, not having a man in the home, right? And you found that a lot of the girls you would, talk to and having your girls groups, they lacked a man and, a male figure in the home.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And that's why I say that, and people think I'm a Republican because I say things like that, like mom and dad in the home, right? And traditional family, but I'm not. I just know the importance of having a male in the house, because your dad, right? When he sat me down, right?
Yes.
When I first went to meet her parents, he sat me down, and he had a talk with me. That was the first thing they did. They wanted to meet me
Right.
and speak with me. And they told me what their expectations were. Right.
Right.
And so I think that a lot of girls, maybe, right, you find that, you work with, don't have someone presenting those
Rest. They're
expectations.
missing that strong male figure to protect them. And unfortunately, because some of them are dealing with a lot of trauma surrounding not having a male figure, they look for that
Right.
in relationships. So they start to date older guys, when you're dating an older guy, they're going to want to have sex, So in order for them to keep that relationship, they do something quicker and they get pregnant. And I had a girl every year that got pregnant. I had some girls that had a baby right before the pandemic. I had a 14-year-old that was an 8th grader going to 9th grade, and she had a daughter in that December before we went all
Wow.
remote. So, I
Wow.
was trying to plan with her, how do you get from your high school to childcare back home, and let's map this. And, these are things that she's having to think about at 14, but her mother was not there on a consistent basis. And she was left many times unattended, and idle time,
Right.
got her in trouble.
Again, I always say it goes back to the parents, and that's one of the big, I think, problems that, because again, going back to the statistics, Black women account for 30% of abortions committed, or that are conducted here in the United States. That's a huge number. And it just, unfortunately, that, Blacks and even Hispanics, large percentage of our demographic is impoverished. Right.
Right.
And a lot of the homes that we come from lack, a father and a mother. And so it's important. I say we need to speak about that as well. When I moved out of Yonkers, I was so used to a lot of my friends, most of my friends didn't have, both mom and dad, that, our dad was in jail, or, my dad, was he was on drugs, he wasn't around. And then I go to, Oklahoma, and it doesn't matter if you're white. It didn't matter if you were Black. It didn't matter if you were Hispanic. You saw a mom and a dad in the home. And so, when we talk about this, always, makes it like a stereotype, right? There's always Blacks and Hispanics don't have a father. But you go to a place like Oklahoma and you see that that's not, the case. That's not the majority. It's actually rare that you even see, someone, a Black family where they're lacking the male in the home, right? So that was very inspiring to me. And that's what I was saying, that, we need to put that image out more, right? And promote that, so that way maybe there's the less of a need for abortions, right?
Absolutely. Like you said, when you don't see it and it's not in your repertoire, you're not going to assume that you can have it.
Right.
So for a lot of my Bronx kids to talk about Oklahoma, they thought that was for white people. And I'm looking and sitting there like I'm not white. So I had all of that. And that's for you too. But you have to be able to break out of this shell of what this is. This block is not everything.
And going back to our relationship, when her dad and mom, they sat me down, and they laid out their expectations, I didn't want to disappoint them. I truly cared about my wife, and she did. She made it very clear, I'm not having sex. That's not what I'm into doing. Right now I'm focused on school. I want to go to college. I want to get married first. And that was the expectations your parents had on you. And so, I once I was told that, I didn't want to disappoint. I really cared. I loved you, and I wanted to be with you. Right. And so that's another thing that I wish we would encourage more. Right. Is that's not for nerds. Right. And
Right.
boys don't have to have sex with as many
Right.
girls as possible. Right.
Right.
I had an employee once who thought it was weird that I just didn't have, even as a teenager or whatever, I didn't have an urge to just have sex with a bunch of, different girls. I don't know. I don't need to do that. Right. It wasn't like, oh, I got to have, and so, when I met Andrea, I was good with that, because my focus was, I want to have a family. I don't want to have my kids raised the way I was raised. My dad not around, and if I have a daughter, I got to make sure as a man that I'm there for her, because there's going to be a lot of boys that are going to be, and my daughters are beautiful, and they're going to be all over her, right?
Right.
So
And
you have to,
and society unfortunately doesn't encourage that in our young people
Right.
to wait. You don't see that. You see more images of sex and, just trying to get likes. So you get likes by being sexy
Right.
and twerking and doing things like that. It's not, highlighting women for, having some poise and not
Right.
doing things like that.
Right. Having
So,
respect for themselves,
right, society doesn't support that image, so it
Right.
doesn't help for our young people.
And some people, I've talked about this, and some people almost look at you like you're wrong for thinking that way, right? Oh, that, you're who you think you are, thinking that, waiting till you're married or waiting, having that idea. That's not, possible. People are just, but why? Why does it have to be that way, right? And why is that such a weird thing for some people to think that, to wait for marriage? I don't know that idea. I don't know why. Right.
And I think it's something where maybe people think that you think you're better than someone because you're trying to do it this way. And I
Right.
think that that's just important for all of us as parents to stress to our kids, really talking to them about sex in a way of, because they're talking about it already. So, you have an adolescent, it's important to have those conversations and what you want for them, what your expectations are, that they carry themselves with respect, that they wait for the right person,
Right.
that they don't feed into social media and all these other images that are
Right.
telling them to move too quick, because they're moving our children too
Mhm.
quickly. And that's why I had someone
Yeah.
pregnant every school year.
They're over sexualizing our kids. And that's what I say, on the internet, you have TikTok, there's constant images of sex, 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 and there was the recent debate or stuff with Councilman Moranti, where, at the Pride Festival, there was, I guess, a transgender show, and he felt that it wasn't appropriate because of this sexual content or innuendo. And, I don't, disagree with, what people's decisions are. But I do agree that, we should keep kids away from, sexual contents at an early age. You have bills in the assembly now where they, if, passed, they will be teaching, transgender sexual stuff and all that things to kids in kindergarten, first and second grade. Now, it's not about transgender sex. It's about any sexual content being spoken about to our kids at that age. What does that do, in your opinion, as someone who's, has the experience, the certifications, the degrees and all that?
Well, I think
Kids?
it opens a child's mind up to subjects and areas that, we don't want them going down that road yet. So, children are very influential. So, especially with, social media and them watching even YouTube, there's a lot of things kind of hidden in these videos, and that's just
Right.
inappropriate for children to be watching. So, you're starting to open them to adult content at a really young age, which is going to affect their development. You want them to stay at a certain pace, and that can
Right.
explode that sexuality piece way too early, causing children to starting to engage in things that are just not healthy for them, taking nudes, and children aren't even
Yeah.
informed
I
about
was going to tell you,
certain things, so they don't make good judgments.
talk to me about that. Again, working with girls, teenage girls specifically, and nudes, right? And sending nude pics. How big of a problem was that
I mean,
in
that
middle
was
school?
that was a very big problem in middle school. Phones, for anybody that works in a school, especially in a middle school, phones are a big challenge with young people, what they're
Yeah.
sharing, girls sharing pictures. I had a whole year where I had a boys group, and the boys would come in and show me pictures of the girls, like, oh, Miss Vasquez, do you think this one's so nice? Look at this one. And it would be like pictures of their breasts, like this, real quick, and little snippets of videos they'd show to the boys, and then the boys would share it in their little group chat and bring it into our group, and it was very humiliating for the girls. So
yeah, I was going to say that's why it's important. I mean, parents, if you have a daughter, this is, God forbid, but this is things that could be happening, which is why important if they do have phones or access to a phone that you check, right? Because you had one dad come in and his daughter, you had to identify that was his daughter. Now, tell me about that.
I had a father come in, and his daughter was one of the ones who we had a school year where everyone was popping a, and
that's what it was called.
Yeah. And pretty much that's what people were saying, pop it, so the dad had to come in, and he wanted to see, we said your daughter was one of the ones, because there was a group of girls, and he wanted to see, like the video. I need to know. I mean, I don't know how you know, but he knew. I don't know, but I had to sit in the office with his dad and try to help him understand that he needs to talk to his daughter about that, because she was popping something, for this young man. And it was just very, very sad, because we just need to talk to our kids. I know nobody wants to talk about sex with their kids. It's very, oh my God, I don't want to go there. They're not ready, but they're talking about it. It's on the internet. Even younger than the age of 10, I would even, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds. It's very unfortunate, but it's not the same society we grew up in. Even in high school, we didn't have phones. We wrote notes to each other. I tell kids that I seem like barbaric. They're like, notes. Oh my God. Paper and pencil.
We would write notes to each other. My wife, I mean, I love this girl. I was so in love with this girl, and I would write notes. So every period we would, exchange notes, and, just sometimes we had nothing to say. We would just write it. But, that's cute. And that's, something that we can tell our kids, and things that we need to encourage more and talk about more. Right. And I get it, as parents, like my mom, she was a single mom, she had 2 kids that she raised by herself, and, she made certain mistakes, but, we want our kids to do better and to progress, right. And to make different decisions than the ones we made. And so that's what we have to talk about. And that's kind of what, I did. And I'm, again, like you were saying, it's not that I think I'm better, right. Because I've had family members and maybe even friends or people think, oh, you think you're better because you got married, and you telling people. No, I'm not saying that. I just think that we have to progress, right. Because that's not okay. You have to have mom and dad there. You want to limit the amount of, baby dads you have, you know what I'm saying? And this is to my people, that come from where I come from, folks. I'm only saying that because it's so important and beneficial to the progression of your life.
Absolutely.
In a positive way.
And for your child, I always was thinking about my future kids, like who will I have them with, and making sure that their life is, good and stable, and what can I do to make sure of that? So we have to help our children think of that, and to be, just really careful with what they do, because, young people are getting pregnant very easily.
If anyone has questions about teenagers, about your teenager, if you're a teenager and you have questions, go ahead and post them up there. Andrea will answer questions. She gets a lot of questions from a lot of parents, a good source. So I just want to mention that also. Tell me a little bit about some of the things you did with the girls in schools and Planned Parenthood and things like that, and, sex ed.
So when I first started there, I noticed obviously that, there was a lot of sexual activity amongst the young people. So we had a partnership with Planned Parenthood that we started to build. They came in to do workshops with our 8th grade students. It got to a point to where I would have a girl every year, and they would come to me and say, I think I might be pregnant. The nurse was difficult to deal with. So I actually bought my own pregnancy tests that I had in my office.
Really? You bought your own?
I did, and I had interns every year, and, we would, actually let the girls use it, like give them that, because they needed to know. And then we would go from there. We would, most of the times we gave it, they were not pregnant.
Right.
But once
but just the fact that they thought they might be pregnant, right?
Well, it was enough to where I had enough people coming to me where I felt like I don't want to violate their confidentiality by going to the nurse. But if I know that they are, then I will go to the nurse and say, now we need to take next steps. So, trying to make sure to protect them in that way. But it was a lot of girls, because honestly, by seventh grade, a lot of girls were losing their virginity. So that's by the age of about 13.
Wow.
You know, most girls were not virgins by the time they got to eighth grade. And I would sit in girls' groups and, you know, we would talk about it. And the girls would be open about losing it. And all the girls that had lost their virginity would tell the one or two, wait, you know, I wish I hadn't. I wish I still had it, because once you lose your virginity, that's it. It's very special for a young woman. And I know we don't always, like, that seems corny, but I tell the girls, like, it is very important. You never forget who that is. Anybody listening, I'm sure you can remember who that first person was, and if it was a special experience or not. So, and even for guys, we need to make sure that they also feel your first time should be important. And so I would tell boys in the boys group, like, I would never want to be with someone that's been with a bunch of girls. So we got to
up. Yeah, we got to make it cool for guys too, to not want to just have sex with a bunch of different girls. Yo, I banged this one. Yo, I haven't. You know, that's not cool. You know, and you know, look, a quick story. You know, I know someone one time that they were somewhere. They were standing. It was an event. They were standing there waiting for their girlfriend to come. And the girlfriend came. She was starting to walk over to this person, and as she's walking over to him, he overheard two other guys talking about her. They were like, "Oh, there goes that girl right there. Yeah, I used to do this with her, bing bang, this, that, and third. You know, all these things that the guy did sexually with her." And he's listening to this, and that just pissed him off. They got into a fight right there over that, right? Because, you know, she was obviously a very promiscuous person. So, you know, like, you have to really cherish that. And we have to tell girls that you have to cherish that. Guys, it's not cool just to be sleeping around. You don't want to get girls pregnant and then, you know, and not be there for the child, right? You know, and that happens a lot, you know, and that's what one person said to me, you know, we had to get pregnant and then the guys is not there. And I said, you're right. You know, that's sad. But you also have to make sure that, you know, if you're going to give that most precious thing, you know, to someone, that's a person that, you know, they're going to be responsible. How do you know that? Look at, you know, who they're around. Look at their family. Look at the, you know what I mean? So when I wanted to find a wife, I looked at her pedigree, her background, right? That was a big, you know, it wasn't just, oh, when she's beautiful and I want to have sex with her, right? So we have to encourage that in guys too, you know, at a young age, not make it cool to have sex with a lot of girls, you know?
And we as parents have to help our children navigate through relationships. So really talking to them, you know, about their relationship if they're in one, you know, and again, laying down your expectations, what you want for them and what's healthy for them, because a lot of kids don't really know. A lot of kids haven't grown up seeing a healthy relationship, so for them, they're not sure. They feel like, oh, I feel like I love him, you know, he buys me this or that, but there's other things in a relationship that are important for young people to understand. So really just talking to your kids and being open.
Have you had any abortions, girls, you know, who've had abortions and you know, tell me about that.
I've had students, you know, so there are laws for young people. So they, at the age of 14, they have HIPAA laws. So when a
explain that
person
HIPAA laws
goes into the doctor's office, you may know, you know, they'll be pulled aside. The doctor will speak to them separately and ask them, are you having sex? Do you need anything? You know, and most times, you know, by the age of 14, they're pulling girls aside to do this. I had a girl that I was working with one year. She was 14 in 8th grade. And she had told me previously that she thought she was pregnant. But she then went to the doctor. And then she told me afterwards that when she was at the doctor, they pulled her aside. They asked her if she, you know, was having unprotected sex. She had any questions. She did tell her, I am afraid I might be pregnant. The doctor gave her a pregnancy test. Mom, the whole time, was in the waiting room. This was while she was away from mom and she was, you know, talking to the doctor privately. The doctor gave her the pregnancy test and she was pregnant.
Wow.
The doctor then gave her the abortion pill, the pill.
Right there?
Mm-hmm.
What's the abortion pill?
So that's a pill that you can take when you're only a few weeks pregnant. That really just allows you to have a really heavy period, like a period, and you bleed the baby out like a period.
Is that like a Plan B pill?
I think it's a little like similar to a Plan B. I'm not sure. I think that's probably the most similar to it, a Plan B pill.
Abortion pill.
So this young lady, she took the pill and she bled the baby out. And now, she came to me in our session the next day.
She came the next day?
Well, whenever she came back to school and she told me what happened and we cried together and she, you know.
Tell me what's that like when you have a girl like that and she's crying now? I mean, how old was she?
14.
14-year-old girl getting pregnant. Now, you know, she goes to the doctor. She takes an abortion pill. to bleed the baby out, like you said, and then she comes to you maybe a couple of days later, right? Because you're working with her and she's crying over this. What is that like?
I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's she's 14. She absolutely didn't need to be having a baby. I know this girl, she was that baby and her would both be lost, but at the same time it's a sense of loss. She felt that.
Right.
I believe that energy, and you connect with the child upon conception, and that was a loss for her. And I saw her a couple years later. Her sister still attended the school. I saw her. She was in high school. She did graduate from high school. I do not think she regrets her decision.
Right.
Because I think she feels it allowed her to be able to go on with her life, but it's still very traumatizing. It's very
and that's what
traumatizing.
that's what I don't, that's why I don't agree with banning it, right? I'm not saying it needs to be banned. I believe that that's a person's choice, that's what they need to do. And in this situation, it seems like she made that decision, and she's headed in a positive direction. Fortunately, even though she had that unfortunate situation, so she would have headed in a positive direction if she had not gotten pregnant, right? So that's what I'm talking about. That's what I say. We need to speak more about telling girls to not have sex and wait, right? Because then you have this mistake, and this is a girl who had the ability and the potential to do good things, great things, right?
Absolutely.
And obviously she had the abortion there to help her with that, so she wouldn't have to struggle. But why even go through that, right? Why even have that as part of your story in life? And that's all I'm saying, is that we need to encourage girls to wait, more education about that, like what you're doing. And you mentioned something about connecting with the baby. Is that why she was really upset also, because of the loss of the child?
Well, of course. So, she talked about feeling really bad and, just a sense of loss.
Right.
I don't know what this would have been. Did I make the right choice? And just really sad. It's hard to go through that. And I don't even know till this day if she's told her mother
Oh, her
what
mom
has
didn't know?
happened. No, she went
Oh,
home and took
wow.
it and had the heavy, she described an extremely heavy,
Wow.
painful period. And then she said she flushed it. She flushed whatever bled out. And she
Wow.
didn't even want to look.
Wow. And see, so again, that's why I
So
think
I
it's so
mean,
important.
if we can do policies talking about sexual education, about all the different types of
Transgenders
people,
and stuff like
why
that,
are we
right?
doing abstinence education? Like,
Good point.
wait, look at all these. I would try to scare kids, but I think by the time I got them in 8th grade, it was too late. Like, start, if you're going to do that stuff earlier, then do the preventative stuff.
Right. That's a
Like
great
a
point.
whole thought process of, oh, I'm waiting until I'm married. You should wait too. You're not waiting, where it's almost like, I better wait because everybody's waiting. That's the thing to do. So
Well, where you came from also, like, and where you grew up at, that kind of was the the
it
sentiment
was,
among the
because
teenagers and stuff.
I lived in
Whether
the
you were
Bible
black,
Belt,
white,
right?
Hispanic.
Yes, I didn't know anybody in middle school pregnant in middle school. That would blow my mind if I was 14 again. Now I understand it because I was in the Bronx. It's a different world, but that would never, nobody was pregnant in high school. Okay. People were talking about going to college. Right. So we have to change the culture of what is cool. It's cool to wait. It's cool to, like, have your virginity when you get married, because that's really something to be proud of. You waited a long time. You've resisted a lot of pressure from society to be true to yourself and what you want for your life and for your future.
I just want to go back real quick, what you mentioned, because that's the abortion debate, right? When is it a life? And the fact that you said that she connected and there was a sense of loss and she wondered what it would be, that means that there's some life there and there's some connection. So I just want to put that out there so people could think about that also, right? There is a real connection there and a sense of loss. And while abortion, may be legal in your state, if you're in New York, it's, legal, that's your right to do. It's still a traumatizing experience for the person that goes through it. Absolutely. So again, it's, pushing, fighting, and being passionate about allowing, have an abortion. We need to give them abortion. It's fine, but also let's think about what they have to go through when they have that abortion, right? And so let's focus again, like my wife said, and I've said, on trying to find solutions that reduce the need for abortions, right? Talking about waiting and other things like that, so they don't have to go through that trauma. So they don't have to choose that option. So they don't have to exercise that right, which is, a right that they can exercise, but not one that, it's a good thing. It's not really a good thing. I just want to go to some comments here from for some kids, the only healthy relationships they see are on TV. Absolutely. And I will attest to that. I'm a perfect example. And I've talked to you about this many times,
Absolutely.
right?
But what you see on TV now, I mean, there's not a lot of healthy relationships
Right.
that you're seeing.
So, for me, like what I saw was a family, eating together at the table. I thought that was very important, right? You know what I'm saying? And I never had that growing up. So, we want to do that too, although we work a lot, but absolutely, that's the only really place I saw a healthy relationship. And I modeled, what I wanted after that, because I watched a lot of TV. We had the illegal box. And then I went to Oklahoma and I saw it in person. I saw it in real life. And I saw that blacks and Hispanics had it. It wasn't just for, whites, as some people think. Education is needed. It's a huge piece of it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And again, everybody is not going to wait. I get that. But still having some thoughtfulness about who, you're
Right.
engaging with.
Right.
Because having a baby is a big deal. That's a real life.
And even going through an abortion.
And going through an abortion is also a big deal and very traumatic if you have to go through that experience. So let's avoid it and just be taking our time and be thoughtful with our partners, especially our sexual partners. We can date people without having sex with them, so.
You didn't wait, but my wife did make me wait a long time, years. I'm talking about years. She made me wait, but at that point, I think she was, pretty secure. At least if something were to happen, I would, get pregnant, that I was going to be there, because, I was definitely in, all in, and I'm here 25 years later. I told her I'm going to be here forever with you and I want to marry you. So, at that point, I think she could felt a little bit more, secure. And then also all the pressure. I need to, all the pressure.
Right. And when I lost my virginity, I was 19. I was in college. I made sure that if something were to happen, I felt that this is somebody that's going to still stand by my side, because he had still been with me for a number of years.
And also you were on, and I want to bring this up to before, you were on birth control,
Yes.
right? So what is it with the birth control? Talk to me about that, because I don't understand. So if you're going to have sex, why not take birth control? Because it worked well for you. I mean, you were able to plan when you wanted to get pregnant, when you wanted to give birth. I mean, you did that like
Well,
clockwork.
my mom very early on put me on birth control, and just felt it was important, said it was to regulate my period. But, also I'm sure wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing anything. I was protected. I wasn't. But I was on birth control for a long time and just took it regularly until I got married and decided to have kids, and then tried to have kids, So I think it's also important to be okay talking to your teen about birth control. If you know they're having sex, if you're suspicious, don't just close your eyes like it's not happening, and then your child pops up
Right.
pregnant or got someone pregnant. Be proactive and say, listen, if you're having sex, then this is what you need to know. And this is how you need to protect yourself, because this is a serious road that you're traveling down, because children are very traumatized when they have no relationship with mom or dad. So if we don't pick good partners and that dad leaves, we're setting our kid up for failure, for trauma, because they are going to want that partner in their, that person in their life
Right.
so badly that you have to pick someone that is going to hold it
Right.
down.
Right.
Even if you and that person don't work, their heart is right, and they will be there for your child.
And they will be there for you. That's old way of thinking. Kids are more modern focused. You have to connect with today's youth. Right. And how do we do that? Right. How do we connect with today's youth and instill an old fashioned way of thinking, which really we shouldn't call old fashioned. We should call it probably like, the better way of thinking. Right. Because the better decision would be to, not be, promiscuous or not engage in a lot of sex, because you up the probability of getting someone pregnant, getting an STD, other things. So.
And, when you introduce and start talking to kids about, I waited and I've only been with one person, it really is something that they respect. Kids are like, wow, that's what's up. Yo, that's, so I think because they don't see people doing it and nobody is talking on it,
Exactly.
that they're just like, well, that don't happen.
Right.
And
we have to make it the norm.
No, hey, it did happen with me and I'm sitting right in front of me. You could touch me, so you can do it too. This is not unattainable. And I think that it's important to remind them of that, because I think young people really do gravitate to that idea.
Absolutely. We just have to, it's like kids want structure, right? We just have to give it to them. God bless you both for addressing this so candidly. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I raised 3 kids. I couldn't do it today again. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
people say that, right? And
Yeah.
even my, you know, our parents have said that I would never want to bring a kid into this world. And we even thinking about, you know, we want to have another one, but do we really want to, you know?
It's a different time, you know, and kids are challenged so much more than we were, you know, and they have so many more distractions and temptations. So it's tough.
Yeah. Hats off to modern parents. The more information out there seems to make it harder to raise kids to be good adults. I tried to sell the romance of waiting. And, you know, and it's not just, you know, again, it's not just waiting and, you know, but also like my wife mentioned, you know, talking to him about birth control. You know, and putting your daughter, if you know, on birth control, like my wife, again, she was on birth control, what, 14, you said?
Right. And a lot of what well, more around like 16,
Oh.
but a lot of what we told the kids in Planned Parenthood in the groups was about birth control. Sure, they would talk on abstinence, but I think realistically, you know,
Right.
we know that kids are going to most likely have sex. So be protected and letting them know what STDs they can catch and how to be aware, because you can have an STD and not even know it and go on for
Right.
6 months and not even know you have
And
an
spread
STD
that, right?
and then spread it, and then it get worse. And then so it runs deep, you know. Planned Parenthood, I gotta say, you know, they offer a lot of educational resources for the schools, for the kids. You know, I know that kids that have went to them for services, you know, even abortion type services. So they do offer that for kids in need. And some of these kids were very much in need. So I'm not going to say I'm not an advocate for having an abortion, but I know that those kids needed it. And I was glad that resource was there for me to share with them when they were in need. Now, for myself, again, it's a personal choice that everyone has to respect.
Right. Absolutely. And so again, you know, I want to make it very clear. Freddie Vasquez on Basement Politics is not saying that, you know, they need to ban abortion. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, you know, I believe that there needs to be other, you know, solutions, you know, more education, and doing things that we can, you know, slow down the pace of abortions,
Right.
or reduce the, you know, the need for abortion, and, you know, make it to where people are not having to exercise that, where people don't have to fight so passionately to make sure that they have the right, because there is such a huge need, right? Because again, 13% of those getting abortions are adolescent. Adolescents make up 13% of the abortions in the United States. And Black women, who make up 13% of the population, account for 30% of the abortions in the country. That's huge when their population size is only 13%. That's huge.
Right. So more preventative tasks and things to get done so that we can help that young people don't get pregnant, that they don't get people pregnant, and that they can actually have more options.
I support free birth control and free vasectomies. I agree. All the birth control pressure seems to be on the girls, and the boys need to hold the same responsibilities. Absolutely. You know, I just think that, you know, that is true. And I think also maybe because, you know, the boy, if a girl gets pregnant, the boy goes. So the girl definitely has to make sure, you know, it is unfair, you know, but life is not fair. I consider getting a vasectomy, right? You know, and I only, why did I consider it? I don't even remember.
Because I didn't want to have the surgery.
She didn't want, right? So she made me go, and then I went to the doctor, and then I said, I'm not doing this, right? I felt like it was going to take away my manhood, but you know, I did. I felt like somewhere I was going to be weaker somehow, but and don't go by what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's true. That's just how I felt, right? But again, also, you know, I do know that if my wife were to get pregnant, and you know, she also understands, we would raise our child, right? We would go through with it. So it's not an immediate need, it's not a rush, like, oh, we can't have a baby. If you were to get pregnant, you would have to get an abortion. So I better go get a vasectomy. If that were the case, then yeah, I would have definitely have done that, you know, myself. Myself had his at 18 and revered at 31 when he got married. You know, I asked the doctor that, but reverse it. Yeah, I asked the doctor that, but I don't know if he said it was. Did he say it was reversed? I don't remember.
Yeah.
And then I heard about something with that, you know, men who did get vasectomies had an increased chance of cancer. I read that somewhere, so it kind of just, I was like, nah, there's no real huge need. I did. No, I did. Listen, why didn't you get your tubes tied?
I did, because I didn't.
By the way, I lost my wedding ring. I'm gonna tell them. I gotta shame myself in public. I don't know if I actually lost it. It might be somewhere. But if you see me around without a wedding ring, it's not because I took it all. You know, It's just I did.
Gotta make that
But I told
clear.
you, right?
Yes.
I wanted to shame myself in public.
Yes,
you know.
shame, shame. Don't lose
Completely
your wedding ring.
reversible. Yeah, I just honestly, it was a whole thing. I mean, the doctor, what is it, the urologist? Is it the urologist? He told me all about it, and I don't know about this, babe. I don't know. Whatever. And then you never know, right? Maybe you might want to have another one. We're about 60 years old, man. If we get bored
I
or
don't know
something.
about that.
Well, anyway, folks, that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us. Again, this is my wife. We've been together for 25 years. I met her. I was 16 years old. I fell in love. We would talk forever on phone. We would pass each other notes, and it was very important for me. Right. And no one was really teaching me this. No one was saying, Freddie, you need to get married and, do this. I just wanted that because I saw around me that we didn't have that. Nobody had that. And like someone mentioned, I believe Thomas, we see positive, healthy relationships from television. And that is so true. That's where I got it from. I watched a lot of television. My grandmother had the illegal cable box, those things back in the day. And so I watched a lot of movies in the 80s and 90s. And I saw this family, and it was mostly white people that I would see. Right. And I always wanted that. I wanted that house with the garage and the hoop, the basketball hoop right there in the front of the garage door. You could play with, I know that sounded corny. A lot of my friends weren't talking about that, but I always wanted that. And so when I met my wife, I felt that, this is someone that maybe I can build that with. And I was set on that. I didn't need to shop around, so to speak. Right. I was like, this is it, man. She had me hooked, and
so we want to make sure young people know it's not just for TV. It's not corny. It's something that people really have and grow up with. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You tell her she cuts me off, babe.
Well, he talks.
I know. She says I talk a lot. Well, that's why I do a podcast.
I know.
Anyway, we're definitely the complete opposite, but we get along great. I love my baby. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And this I just want to shout out Little Prodigies. I want to give a shout out with enrolling now currently for the summer camp. So if you know anyone,
Yes, currently enrolling for the summer camp. So if you have needs for your childcare needs, we do a lot of really fun stuff, academic, social, trips on Fridays, really fun stuff. So check out our page, littleprodigies.org. Check out our Facebook. Come through. We definitely are hoping to have an opening also in the fall for 3 and 4 year olds, just planting a little seed out there. So if you have little ones that need childcare for September, 3 and 4 year olds, please hit us up. This is what I do. This is what I love. And definitely pour that into what I do at Little Prodigies.
She's amazing. Absolutely, guys. Thank you, folks, for watching. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Thank you, honey, for joining me. I appreciate you for giving us your knowledge and your time.
Anytime.
Have a great, what's today? Monday? Rest of the Monday. And I will see you mañana. Freddie Vasquez with Andre Vasquez. We are out of here.
Bye. Have a good night.
Not so bad. You did good, right, folks? You did great, right? She did good. Say, you did great, Andrea. She gets a little nervous. I don't know if you saw her beginning, but she's awesome. Awesome. You did great, babe. You did great. Tuned in late, so didn't realize you were Freddie's wife. You two are beautiful. Thank you. Yes, my wife. I got lucky, right? I'm like, I'm the most fortunate guy I think on this planet,
Yes,
and I mean that. And I mean that. I do. I mean that. I tell you that. I do. I tell you, babe, you're my baby. I love you, folks. Thank you, folks. Have a great night. We'll see you soon. Take care. I always pick the wrong one. Oops.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.